Hello and welcome. The purpose of this video is to demonstrate indexes. I'm going to create a very simple index called left, and it'll be a Boolean index. The index will test to see whether or not some some constructed objects are on the left-hand side of the screen or on the right-hand side of the screen. There are three scripts involved in this. Actually, two scripts and one object called a test object. So let's have a look at the test object. So this is it here. It basically implements EODB class, and down below here it's implementing the three properties and the three methods. This thing has a couple of different constructors, one constructor to actually set the position and a different constructor to actually pass in the object identifier and essentially construct the object. So when you construct the object, you pass in whatever the database happens to be and a position, and we'll set the database and we'll set the position. And as it turns out, when I actually use this thing, I just construct it and then I do a save, and this saves it away. Later on, I will grab this object, I'll pass in the object identifier, I'll construct that object, basically going into the database, grabbing that value and storing it, or not storing it, but loading it up and placing the position into this object. And the rest of this should look fairly familiar. The only difference is the definition. You'll notice that the definition is now reading and writing out of an attribute that's in the class, this position right here. And I'm also using an index. So in this case, I'm using the index, and I'm saying I want to store in index this value. So I know that the index here is a Boolean, and basically I pass in a Boolean value into this left index. So when the Position.x is less than 0, left is set to true, and when it's 0 or higher, left is set to false. So that's how the test object works. Let me explain this piece. So I have an empty game object. It contains both of these scripts, one construct all and the other one create multiple tests, and the check marks indicate whether or not this script is running. So in this case, construct all is not running and create multiple test script is running. So basically what this test script does is it constructs all my objects. So I awake in my script and I initialize this database. So I'm creating a database that's called simple.db. So I've actually just deleted the database here. So there's nothing in this folder. And it's going to construct a simple.db file and a simple.left, which will contain all of the object identifiers and a Boolean value, true or false, to indicate whether or not it's left or right, as I've explained in the test object script. So all the script does is it starts up, creates 40 objects, and basically saves the 40 objects away into the database, and then when it's all finished, I commit the database to the file system. The way it sets the position is I have some minimum and maximum values, and all my cubes fall within this range. So basically I do a min and max random calculation between this min value and the max value, and do that for x, y, and z. So that's how my position gets calculated. I create a new test object by specifying the database and a position. So this is now going to construct this object. I save the object away in the database, and then I commit. And that's all this script does. So let's go ahead and run it. So in this case, the script is turned on, this one's turned off, and I'll run it. And what will happen is in this folder, it creates two files. The .db file, which contains all of the data, and an index called .left, which contains the Boolean true and false values. And then I'll just stop the script. So now that the script has been stopped, I'm going to run the construct all script. So that's this one here. So the construct all script, it starts up, it loads up the database. So again, it's simple, and it loads up the left index. And then if the filter is turned on, so here's this this filter stuff going on. So there's a filter, and construct left and then, well, construct left only. So basically what happens is when the filter is off, I'm basically going into the database and finding all of the classes called test. So if the database had other classes in there, I wouldn't see them. I'd only see the test objects. I figure out what that test object is going to be. So I go to the database and I pull off the object identifier. So what this what this call is giving me is basically a list of object identifiers that are of type test. And so if I go into my test object, you'll notice that the class type is test. So going back to the constructor, so now I'm going to the database, I'm getting all the test objects, and I'm going to construct I'm going to find out what those values are. I'm going to create a game object based on the object that I'm specifying. So in this case, this cube is being used as the object that it's going to construct. And then I set the position to whatever the test position is. So let's go ahead and run it. And what you'll see is a whole bunch of objects get created basically in this area here. All right, so there's all of my objects, and roughly down the center is where you're going to see these objects. And I ran a different test earlier, and all my objects appeared over here. So it's obviously pretty random. So in this case, it's now just constructing all the objects. So now we're going to run it with the filter. So the filter says, show me the left objects if construct left is true. So I go into the database, I say all Boolean values, I pass in the index that I want, in this case left, and I test to see whether or not the key is equal to left. So basically what happens is out of this all method, I get a key value pair, with the left-hand side being the Boolean value and the right-hand side being the object identifier. So basically what I'm doing is I'm testing to see whether or not left is turned on. So I'm just going to turn it on for the moment. Go back to my memory here. Bring up the script. So basically what's happening is it's going to show me all the objects with an x value less than 0. So basically, because it's using this index, this is where it's doing its conditional test, and it works the same way. Once I have the objects, I basically construct the object, figure out its position, and then run it. So when I start this, it's going to show me all the objects. So just remember where all these objects are. I'm going to stop it and then run it with the filter. So now we should see all the objects that appear with an x value that's less than 0. So that's why all these objects appear here. I'm going to stop it, and I'm going to go back into my game object. In this case, I'm going to construct the right only. So these are all the objects on the right-hand side. And that's my test script. Basically gives you the idea of how indexes work. In this case, we're creating a single Boolean object called left. Gets set to true if the objects are on the left-hand side, and false if they're to the right-hand side. And that's all the index does. Hopefully that helps you out, and we'll see you in the next video.